Hey everybody, we're here for High School Sports Talk Plus. It's been a long time, but we're back.
Too long.
Better than ever again in a different studio. Somewhere unknown in the offices of Max Media. But, shh, our little secret. Alright, hear us every Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Where's the sign? We don't have the sign.
No, we have the hat. No sign, but a hat. See that hat? 94.1.
I cannot work under these kind of conditions.
Well, he's wearing an NC State shirt, that's why. 10 a.m. to noon, he's Coach Ed Young. I'm Matt Hatfield. High School Sports Talk presented by VirginiaPreps.com, which you can hear the archive episodes every week on VirginiaPreps.com if you miss it, but you don't want to miss it because that's a no-no. And the high school football schedule for 2018 just got released. In a lot of ways, it's reversed from last year because if you opened up at home against Team XYZ, you're away against Team XYZ in the opener. But we still want to get you all revved up. The juices are flowing. You got an appetite for football, don't you? You're ready for some games, right?
I'm ready for games. I'm ready to play. I'm ready to watch.
We have a top 10 list, but we have two games that Ed Young has highlighted right out of the gate, week one, that didn't even make the cut. They're good games, but this is how good this list is. There's so many good games, we can't even squeeze them all in the top 10. So give us the Ed Young bonus features that you got to open
Two
the
opening
season.
games. Keep your eye on. Bayside at Cox.
Ooh.
Hopewell at Norcom.
Now, last year in those games, Bayside beat Cox 63-24. It was the most points Bayside scored since like 1992 against Kellum. And then Cox ended up, struggling early, and then they got hot late, lost double overtime to Oscar Smith. Bayside had sort of an up and down, topsy-turvy year. You had them winning the beach, then you got off that. The Hopewell-Norcom game is fascinating because last year Norcom won at Hopewell. Hopewell went on to win a state championship. How about the year Hopewell had, even though they're a Richmond team, Ed? They opened up with a loss, won 6 in a row, lost their last 3 regular season games. Might have been the first team ever to win a state title doing that. Won 5 in a row in the playoffs, including beating Phoebus in the second round on their way to the Class 3 crown. So 2 interesting games right out of the gate. They didn't even make the list because our list is that good.
And I don't know if you want to put the first game of the year as the key game during the year. Usually you got the season get going, you let records develop, and then you say, here's the key games. But for preseason right now, these are projected games, regardless, I think, of record. And hopefully the records will be good and there won't be no major injuries. The games will be good.
You going to pick a winner in either of those 2 games?
I would say I'm going to go Bayside.
Ooh, well, thanks a lot. Now we won't have Bill Sichelski and Tavion Robinson in the studio because of you. Thanks a lot. Nice job.
Or I could make a switch here in a few seconds and go to Cox.
Sure. You are
and
a
have John
waffler.
White mad.
You're a waffler. You know that? You are a waffler.
No, pancakes.
Okay.
Pancakes.
All right. Top 10 list now. Here's our 10 must-see games. And Ed Young and I are going to have our players of the year. We did it last year in August, and we got some of them right for the districts. We'll do the 5 districts from Hampton Roads, the Beach, the Eastern, the Southeastern, the Peninsula, and the Bay Rivers in August. So we're going to make you stay tuned for the next video episode because there's plenty more to come. But we're going to tell you our 10 games to see, and we're going to go in chronological order, Ed, in terms of the start of the year to the end of the year. Friday, August 31st is the first Friday night games, but there's a Thursday game with Norcom, who you just mentioned. They got Hopewell first, but they open up at home against Hopewell, and then they play Lafayette. The Rams from Williamsburg come to town. Bay Rivers District team that's had a long streak going. They don't get challenged a whole lot in the Bay Rivers. I mean, there's time for time here you see Smithfield or Pocosin or York make push at them, but this is a real telling game for Andy Lynn's group out of district early on in the year.
Yeah, it's funny how Norcom has to open up with 2 toughies. And we had talked on the radio show that we felt that because it's a young team, if they can get at least one of these 2, that'll be help for them. Winning both would be tremendous. Losing both, not going to kill their season, but that's 2 losses opening the year. And you're talking about young kids who you want to get their mind right, to get their psyche right with wins. But Lafayette coming down to challenge Norcom, going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Lafayette's defense will be quite as strong as it was last year. They lost Jack Irwin, the linebacker, to William Mary, and Armani Burden, a big defensive end. Those are arguably their 2 best defensive players. They still have some good pieces in place there, and Norcom going to rely heavily on a couple of guys coming back from injury in Kason Dixon and Taurus Jones. 2 guys that will go both ways. In Dixon's case, a real lethal wide receiver, defensive back. The very next night, though, we have 2 games we like. One's in Richmond, but it involves a Tidewater team. And the other's in Hampton Roads at Ed Young's current place. At the river, Nansman River plays host to
Maury High School, the Commodores, who we are looking for big things from this year. We're actually major step up from last year's season. Nansman River beat them last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Coming from behind in the rain.
Came from behind, and now we're looking at Maury coming down to Nansman River.
Yeah.
good opening game. Of course, I'm prejudiced. I got to go with
You're biased.
my prejudice, bias, whatever you want to say. I'm going Nansemond River. That's my squad. That's my school. So, and we're not really picking winners and losers in these games, but
No.
I still that is an interesting opening game. Could it be Division 5?
Preview Region A, yeah,
Region
could
A,
be
there you
championship.
go.
And you look at it too, Ed. Maury, you were out the weekend on the show, but Sheridan Jones, the Clemson commit, who comes to Maury from Bishop Sullivan at cornerback, he could be the shutdown corner in the area. You have Keandre Lambert, Cam Chancellor's nephew, at wide receiver. They've even dabbled with him at some quarterback this offseason. We'll see if he plays quarterback to open the year. They've got skill position guys, no doubt about it, for Maury. I think Nansemon's edge would be, if Maury's edge is on the skill positions, it's in the trenches for Nansemond. They did lose Gerard Stringer to East Carolina, but it's a really interesting game in the debut as head coach for Justin Conyers as he takes over for David Coakley as the head coach for the reigning region champions, the Warriors of Nansemond River, who are at home in that one. It should be a raucous atmosphere. I plan to be at that one. Another game you might want to check out if you want to make a road trip, you fans in the peninsula, Woodside. Danny Dodson's Wolverines return an awful lot. Dante Chestnut, running back, got their quarterback back. Good guys up front. And they hit the road to Highland Springs for the second year in a row. It's not actually a home game for Woodside. They couldn't logistically work it out. But they go on to take a Highland Springs team, Ed, that has won 3 consecutive state titles, and they are loaded. Oh, by the way, just added a big-time piece in Ollie Jennings, a national recruit wide receiver who's got offers from galore places, Michigan State, North Carolina. He came in from Hermitage, so the rich get richer.
And I'll tell you, so I happened to see the Highland Springs Nansemond River game last year. I'm impressed with Highland Springs, the receivers. They had a big fullback, a young kid.
He was a freshman, yeah.
Yeah, he was only a
He's back.
freshman. I could not believe that because he played much like a senior. Cause I kept asking people, where's he playing school next year? And they said, Highland Springs, he's only a freshman. I could not believe it. And you tell me to get in a receiver like that, a big-time receiver with those kind of offers, I don't see how Highland Springs could go undefeated.
Yeah, Jennings had 47 catches for 709 yards and 13 touchdowns last year at Hermitage, and they return an awful lot of guys that were on an all-underclass team on VirginiaPreps.com. So those are the 2 games for Friday, August 31st. You got 3 games that weekend that are just fabulous. The next week, Saturday, September 8th, it's a Saturday afternoon football game. Our buddy Hank Sawyer at Lake Taylor is not crazy about it. He says if I wanted to do Saturday games, I'd go coach college football. He likes to say all the time. But he's got a dandy of a game Saturday, September 8th against Freedom High School out of Woodbridge. They come to Norfolk to take on Lake Taylor. And if you recall last year, Ed, it was not a pleasant experience for Lake Taylor going to Woodbridge when they lost 58-7. The worst loss we have on record in their program's history. So you know they'll be awful angry and want to get revenge.
Yeah, giving up 58 points. There were years that 58 was the season total they gave up. They gave that up in one game to a very good team. Now, 1 year later, here they come back down. You know, no doubt, Hank Sawyer have those Titans ready to go against that one.
And Freedom's got a lot of talent. They got a running back in Taekwon Brown who's got multiple scholarship offers, a defensive tackle in Josh Fuga who's committed to Temple. But remember, Lake Taylor was so young last year. Had a freshman quarterback in Jeff Foster, a freshman running back in Malik Newton, a 3-sport star who also plays baseball and basketball quite well. He had 1,000 yards rushing as a 9th grader. Those 2 guys back in the backfield, I think this will be a much more competitive game this time around.
There's a lot to be said when you have to come to Lake Taylor and play. A whole lot to be said. I'm sure Freedom said the same thing last year when Lake Taylor went there. So I don't see anybody in either of these teams scoring 58.
No.
Could be a very good game, but it's going to be a grudge match.
Should be much closer this go around. We'll get back to Lake Taylor because they're back on the list in a little bit. But we go to we skip a week. Friday, September 21st in Virginia Beach. We got a good one. Ocean Lakes at Cox.
Could this be technically for the Beach mythical title?
Ooh, that early in the season?
I mean, of course, last year we kind of jumped to. I picked Bayside beginning of the year. Who saw Lansdowne going undefeated?
10-0, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the Beach, you always want to say maybe right off the bat Ocean Lakes. Joe Jones has really done a good job picking up from where Chris Scott left off at Ocean Lakes. But you got athletes at Bayside, you got athletes at Lansdowne, Cox.
Salem.
Cox does not make mistakes. Salem, tons of athletes. And we're not even mentioning 4 or 5 other teams that cause problems every week.
Oh, Princess Anne was a surprise team last year with Daryl Jones. He's at Maryland now, but they got a big-time DB in Tony Grimes, and we're going to keep an eye out for Tallwood because every time we forget about them, they make us pay.
They make us pay.
And really the only team in that district that hasn't been as competitive, a place I used to go to, Kempsville has the longest losing streak in the state. Oh, by the way, they have a sleeper kid in Vinny Murphy, plays some quarterback, wide receiver, defensive back. I'll give him a shout-out because he's going to be a player to watch out for this year, even though the Chiefs have struggled. But you know, and I think you're onto something. Ocean Lakes, they got Jake Lowe back at running back. Remember, he was there as a freshman, left to go to Bishop Sullivan and backed up Kalen LeBourne, and then he got hurt game 1 last year for Bishop Sullivan. He could be a 1,500-yard-plus running back if healthy for Ocean Lakes. Though they did lose Javon Beckton, his defensive end, to Virginia Tech. And watch out for Miles Austin at wide receiver for them. And Cox has a guy you have to watch out for, a Tidewater Athlete of the Year, All-State in two sports.
Yeah, Tavion Robinson. I'm going to spill the beans. That's my Beach District Player of the Year. How can you not pick him out of the Beach? We saw him dominating football. We saw him dominating basketball.
Will he play quarterback this year? That's always the question. He's played wide receiver, which is what he's going to probably play at Virginia Tech, play some defensive back, returns, kicks, and punts. Maybe some time at quarterback again, as they could split time with him and Kendall Spriggins. We'll have to see what happens there. And last year, Alexander Jidlick had a good year at quarterback for Ocean Lake. So I'm with you. The winner of that game, regardless of their record coming in, they both could be undefeated, like at 3-0 coming in. They have to feel like they're going to be in position to finish atop the beach or have a really high seed for the playoffs.
Yeah.
In Class 6 Region A. September 27th, just 6 days later on a Thursday night, I'm going to get Ed Young to make the trip to Darling Stadium. He's probably got a deal with Fall League that night, or on a Tuesday night, maybe he'll make a trip back over, get him some wings somewhere at one of his favorite establishments. Hey, you can always sponsor a video show. Lake Taylor Phoebus on a Thursday night at Darling Stadium. Be there, be square. That's a darn good game. They've had some memorable battles over the years.
Yeah, that's, wow. That's a playoff atmosphere every time, regardless when they play. Great coaching on both sidelines, athletes on both sidelines. I always tend to figure out, in a game like that, where's it being played? I'm giving that home team that advantage. Everybody say home team's worth 10 points, so that 10 points in that game would be big. But both those teams should go a distance. I might have to mark that down. Fall League, I think, is on Wednesdays this year, so
Okay.
Thursday might be open for me to check that
You
out.
just spend the night and well, you got school the next day. That can't work. But you look at their history. Phoebus had beaten them 5 straight times, all in the playoffs from 2002 to 2011. Then Lake Taylor walloped them in the playoffs, 54-0. Lake Taylor beat them pretty soundly again, 42-14 in 2014. And then Phoebus got them last year, 25-7. Lake Taylor was a bit young. Phoebus got some playmakers people got to watch out for. Barry Hargreaves at wide receiver. He's back. Their quarterback, Chris Daniels, who had the great scramble late to help them rally and beat Hampton. Daniels is back at quarterback. They got a running back in Jalen White to watch out for. And both of these teams are really strong up front. So if you like physical, in the trenches, good football, this is a good game to see because it could be 13-7, but extremely good to watch.
Every hit will be a hit. And there'll be a little bit of trash talk in this game, but there's a respect on both sides. But these are two traditionally winning programs.
And they can't see each other in the playoffs because Lake Taylor's in Class 4 and Phoebus is in Division 3.
Right.
Moving into October, Ed Young's least favorite month because he thinks Halloween should be abolished. So
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
But we have some tricks and treats for you. October the 5th, Lancetown at Salem. Lancetown, we talked about this a little bit earlier. You know, they went 10-0 last year, and a lot of people they're not buying into them. They think it was a fluke. Yeah, Brent Stukes is gone, Norfolk State quarterback. Joseph White is gone, defensive back wide receiver at UVA. But they still have Tommy Riemann, and they have Luke Manhaska at running back. They have Jalen Jennings at defensive back, and they've had Salem's number. They've beaten them 4 straight times. So Salem's seniors that just graduated never beat Lancetown. Never did. And those games have been tight. 15-14 in 2017, 21-17 in 2015, 22-21 in 2014. A couple of those were upsets. Salem is chomping at the bit to finally get over that Lancetown hurdle.
And again, it's a backyard rival type game. I don't know if it's rivals of Lake Taylor, Phoebus, that type of situation, Hampton, Phoebus, but
Oscar Smith, Indian River.
Indian River, yeah. But this is big. These kids know each other. Schools aren't that far away from each other. There's been transferring over the years between the two schools, so it's big. I just think real hard for Lancetown to go undefeated again, and if they come into this game undefeated, Salem will have a lot to say about that.
Well, and the schedule says that it's possible, though I don't know if I'd say it's probable. They have Green Run, Bayside, Kempsville, Princess Anne, First Colonial, Ocean Lakes. You'd certainly look at those Bayside Ocean Lakes games as there are 2 potential stumbling blocks there in that stretch. But certainly a game to watch out for. And I'm going to give a name to watch out for. Ed mentioned Tavion Robinson as his player of the year pick. I don't know if he'll be my player of the year pick, but the running back at Salem, Kalen Black, rising junior. He's gotten a few offers here lately, Virginia Tech included. Watch out for him. He could be the next great Salem running back, almost in the same type of ilk as Kevin Whaley, a name that you remember real well. Kalen Black is a name that's going to have a big breakout year. He had a good year last year, but I think really become a statewide known name across Virginia. Saturday, October 13th, Hampton, Phoebus. Need we say more?
I kind of touched on it when I said Lancetown And Salem's not as big as a rival as somebody like a Phoebus Hampton. Well, here it is, Phoebus and Hampton. Doesn't matter records, doesn't matter where it's played. These are the perennial powers. They know each other very well, and you just wonder what type of game is going to be that particular year. Both bringing the athletes into this, so again, this is one of the top games to watch. You mark this one down regardless going into the season.
Well, and last year, Phoebus was stuck on about 105 yards of offense for the game. And they drove all the way down the field with Chris Daniels, their quarterback, making some scrambles, some Houdini-type moves. And they got past Hampton to win that game in what was a down-to-the-wire tight one, 14-12. Not a whole lot of offense. So it could certainly be reminiscent to the game earlier that Phoebus plays with Lake Taylor. And you wonder, with Phoebus having those two toughies within maybe a 3-week stretch, how they'll hold up physically. But a game that, for Hampton, I think it's going to have a lot of implications. Remember, they lost the number 1 seed for the playoffs last year, I think because of this game with Phoebus. Remember, they lost to Norview, ended the regular season as well, and you never got the 1 seed. And you ended up having Salem as the 2 seed. Hampton fell to the 3 seed. They beat Gloucester in the first round, then lost to Salem in the second round. So if they want to avoid having to go to, whether it be an Indian River, a Maury, a Nansemond River, a Salem in the playoffs, be it first, second, third round, probably more second, third round, this is a game Hampton's got to look at as a game they got to get. Phoebus might have a little bit more margin for error, although they want to get the 1 seed in Class 3 Region A as well, with Hopewell being in the mix as well as Norcom.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Hampton's sake, a little tougher Division 5. I think that they'll need this. Phoebus is going to take care of their points elsewhere, and of course, beating Lake Taylor will help them a lot.
And unfortunately, you can't see these two playing in the playoffs again like we had for many years in the 90s and early 2000s. Same is said for Oscar Smith and Indian River, but they've never really met in the playoffs because they've always been Division 5, Division 6, and that's what they are now. Indian River's Division 5, Oscar Smith is Division 6. The game is at Oscar Smith on a Saturday, October the 20th. Certainly, Oscar Smith has had Indian River's number. You remember that wild game 3 years ago at Hickory with the return by D'Angelo White at the very end when Indian River had the game in their grasp, pretty much won and had to punt it there. But the spice is even greater because the quarterback for Indian River is now Dominic Brooks, who split some time with Cam Kelly last year at quarterback for the Tigers of Oscar Smith.
Yeah, the youngster Brooks actually got his career started at Western Branch, so he's moving. He's moving throughout the Chesapeake school system, which is going to just add fuel to this fire for Indian River, Oscar Smith. Once again, there's not too many teams that could put this many athletes out on the field as both of these two teams combine. Indian River does have some key transfers who are going to play major roles for him this year. And, of course, Oscar Smith just keeps selling along. This is a sellout type game. I think you say it's a Saturday afternoon, but it's going to be a sellout type game. Both teams' records will be shining by the time they get to this. Once again, Oscar Smith, Indian River. Don't have to say a whole lot.
Could be undefeated. And last time Indian River beat Oscar Smith was 1998. You mentioned the new faces. Lamorion James coming in from Norfolk Christian, played running back there. He has multiple offers. He's going to play some wide receiver as well. And really, I think this game comes down to, though it's a ways off in the distance, to me it's going to be these two keys to this game, as I've told a lot of people all summer. Can Oscar Smith block the Indian River defensive front, which is ferocious with Ben Smiley at defensive line and others, Sean Moore at linebacker, first time on the field in a couple years, and then conversely, can Indian River's secondary, which was hurt late last year, can it cover all those wide receivers in the passing game of Oscar Smith, which for many years they've had the best quarterback in the district, whether it be J.J. Williamson, Dexter Merritt, Greg Boone, Phillip Sims, Sean Mitchell, and now the do-it-all athlete Cam Kelly.
It's going to be interesting because you're right. You got in most games you look at the line. Mm-hmm. Whoever controls the line of scrimmage most going to win most football games, especially high school. I think offensive line is the hardest thing to play in football at any level, especially high school, to keep people off the quarterback, especially if Oscar Smith wants to get throws in. So you're going to have to, that issue. With a weak secondary, supposedly weak secondary, Smith wants to put the ball in the air. Also, another interesting thing, Kelly playing quarterback. Mm-hmm. Full time. This is going to be interesting to see how well he is. He's a tremendous athlete, no question about that. Probably will get the job done, but let's get him out there first and see what he does.
It could be more of a weapon in this game as a runner than as a thrower, given that the pass rush for Indian River too. So that's a great game and arguably the best one on this list. We'll get to another game involving Oscar Smith that could pass for the best on the list. I think it was last year, but that's in November. We're still in October. No Halloween yet. Oh wait. We're going to move to November now. That was game number 9. This is number 10.
That's right.
Here we go. We're at it, folks. That was 9. It went by so fast. Flies when you're having fun. Friday, November the 2nd, Ed. It is Kings Fork at Oscar Smith. And last year, It was an instant classic. 29-23, Kings Fork won. The 99-game winning streak for Oscar Smith was snapped when he had a pair of touchdown passes of 50 yards or longer completed on 4th down with less than 3 minutes to go in the game. And then Oscar Smith's Cam Kelly had the return to the 4-yard line, and the Kings Fork defense stiffened, and they held on and win to snap the streak. Now the scene shifts to Chesapeake.
Tremendous game last year, and Oscar Smith has been a thorn in Oscar Smith's side over the years, and it was just last year that he really put it all together. And
Kings Fork, yeah.
Kings Fork taking that down. So once again, stage is set. Oscar Smith got to restart that streak. I don't really think they're concerned about it, but think about it. You're number 99.
Yeah.
I'm a nines guy. I don't like nines. I always round up to 10. So I can't round that up to 100 because you did not win 100 straight games. And now they'd have to go way back, and it would take another 10 years and winning at that pace to get to that 100. But not that that's a main focus. But I think a main focus is they're going to want to be ready for Kings Fork. And once again, what does Kelly do at that quarterback position for Oscar Smith?
Well, and Kings Fork might have a freshman at quarterback. That's been the rumblings and rumors. We'll see as Justin Sherman graduated, their star quarterback from last year. They do have those 2 big-time defensive tackles back in Trayshawn Mitchell, younger brother of Taraji Mitchell, and Jay Reed Hardy. Both were enforcers on the D-line, and Oscar Smith's going to see a good D-line with Indian River. And a name to watch out for Kings Fork, he's going to have a hard time running against that Oscar Smith defense, though, is Leo Wethington, younger brother of Deshaun Wethington, who went on to Towson. So haven't heard a whole lot about Kings Fork this offseason. It's really been dominated by Indian River and Oscar Smith in that southeastern district in terms of the talk. But remember, they had a big year. They lost those 2 games to Western Branch early and Lafayette late in the region championship in Class 4 Region A. But in between, they were dominant, and they beat the Oscar Smith Tigers. Sky Littles has done a good job there. We'll see if he can beat Oscar Smith 2 years in a row. Much easier said than done.
Right.
That'll do it, Ed. As we wrap it up here, favorite game on the list. You got one of those 10 that really jumps out at you as your favorite of them all.
Without looking, I'm going to say...
Well, you're looking now.
Yeah, I'm now looking, but I'm going to say, without saying first, Hampton Phoebus.
Ooh.
Because of the tradition. Now, if I have to sit down and really look at the game, considering the time of the year when the game is going to be played, Indian River, Oscar Smith.
That's your pick. I'm going to go with Phoebus and Lake Taylor. I'm not quite sure about Hampton's makeup this year. They could be a little bit younger, but I think Lake Taylor's due for a bounce-back year. They had a less than stellar year for them, and that's a game that I think is going to have big implication for the playoffs, even though it's in late September for Lake Taylor trying to get home field, and the same for Phoebus in Class 3. So I think that's a game that could be telling as to if one of those teams wins that. Our best chance for a state title might be in Hampton Roads in Division 4 Division 3 with one of those teams or somebody else from here, because sure, an Oscar Smith could do it in Class 6 or an Ocean Lakes perhaps, or even in Division 5 you might look at an Indian River or somebody, but you have 3-time defending state champs in Class 6 and Class 5 with Westfield and Highland Springs. Sure, you have it in Salem in Class 4, but there's not the intimidation factor because Lake Taylor's beaten them in a state championship before. So I think that's the thing to look out for. Maybe our best chance for a state title in Hampton Roads could come with someone out of Division 4 Division 3.
I think so. Now, I throw this at you, based on maybe some of your summer look. Is there a team we're not talking about at all?
At all.
That could be a surprise. I'm not saying win a state title. I'm not saying go 9-1 or 8-2. But is there a team out there that we're not mentioning that we're going to mention now?
Well, that wasn't on the list at all.
Not on the list at all.
Not on the list at all. Boy, that's
Not
a
on
tricky
the list
question.
at all.
He's a toughie. Can I give you 2 teams?
I'll take 2.
I'll give you Bay Rivers District, the York Falcons. That's your man Doug Pereira, the Blue Smoke. You love
Blue
him.
Smoke.
They could very well be, with Smithfield having a coaching change. I know Picoson's very good. Some uncertainty after Lafayette and the Bay Rivers. They could be the second best team. And remember, they had a good playoff run last year before falling to Hopewell in the 3rd round of the playoffs. So I'd keep an eye out for York. I think if they keep their offensive line healthy and some playmakers emerge for them, they could be a team to be reckoned with, and their defense is usually pretty stout. And I give you a team out of the Beach District that could catch you by surprise. Maybe even game 1 pull an upset of Lancetown. Green Run. Year 2, Brandon Williams. They have a big-time receiver in Lakeem Rudolph. I don't think they're a top 3 in the district, top 4 in the district, but they pulled an upset last year at Bayside, if you remember. They could be that upset. If somebody gets knocked off those favorites, you figure the 4 favorites early on are Ocean Lakes, Cox, Salem, and Bayside or Lancetown.
Yeah.
5 teams.
Yeah, 5 teams.
One of those teams, maybe 2 of those teams, could get knocked out by Green Run early in the season because they play a tough schedule out of the gate. Watch out for them. They've got some speed and athletes there. Brandon Williams, year 2. They could be a team that, again, we're not talking about going deep in the playoffs, but could cause havoc and keep somebody from getting a chance to go deep in the playoffs. So there you go.
I concur with that. That would be a team to watch, and take them lightly. In a topsy-turvy beach, you'd be in trouble.
I'll give you one more team that's a surprise because they surprised last year. We didn't talk about them at all. This is Deep Creek. I want to see what Andre Twine does in year 2. He did a fantastic job. Could have been easily the coach of the year. He's got Antoine Flora back, a wide receiver, who's a deadly one. They lost some key guys in Damian Everett, a running back, and Antonio Turner, the menacing defensive lineman, to Howard. But watch out. Purple Thunder was restored last year. And their team, again, not hearing a whole lot about them, but they have to be on a radar screen with what they did last year.
Yeah, and that was that group, that young group that they were all together in middle school. Here they come, moving right into Deep Creek. Turn that whole program back around, almost to the yesteryear days where Deep Creek was 8-9 type team. D'Angelo Hall, those guys type back there. So, yeah, I would say Deep Creek's going to be out there and in contention.
Now, you know this as a coach, is sometimes the best coaching jobs are when you're expected to win. Now, how do you handle expectations and pressure? Because they weren't expected to win last year, but now we know about them a little bit.
Yeah, all eyes on you,
Yeah.
game planning more stronger. You got to make sure kids don't, get a fat head, so to speak.
What's wrong with a fat head? Those are nice on the wall. I like those fat heads.
Well, those type that stick on the wall are good, but the type you have under that hat won't work.
Hey, get us a fat head. Get a Matt Hatfield or Ed Young fat head. And if you want to be a sponsor for the video show,
Sponsors, come on, people. We need the sponsors. There's so
Contact.
much we want to do, we can do, but it takes a little bit of green.
or we'll
and-
take free food, either
and
one.
food, whatever, something that can get us more airtime.
Comment on the thing. Send us an email. That's it for
Comments are down there somewhere.
High School
Where the
Sports
comments
Talk
at? Down there
Plus.
somewhere?
High School Sports Talk Plus. We do this throughout the season and the off season, and we'll be back in August with our picks. And don't forget, listen every Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon on ESPN Radio 94.1, ESPNRadio941.com, and VirginiaPreps.com to High School Sports Talk with the coach.
Ed Young.
I'm Matt Hatfield. We'll talk to you next time. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Later.